Hi, our group is going to talk about career intervention for juvenile delinquents. My name is Jasmine Herrera.
I am Jose Silva.
And I'm Mariana Vasquez.
First of all, we want to talk about our population, give you a little bit more of a description. So, a juvenile in Texas is legally defined as a person who is between the ages of 10 and 16 when they committed an act of delinquent conduct. And in 2017, they were 2,842,884 juveniles in Texas. And of this population, 50% were Hispanics, 31.6% were Caucasians, 11% were African Americans, 51.2% were male, and 48.8% were female. And some of the characteristics that we identified that were kind of particular for this population and like some of the educational risk included low academic achievement, negative attitudes towards school, low academic aspirations, a high risk of dropping out, and also frequent suspension or expulsion at school.
So the first career-related issue that we identified was that juvenile delinquents often come from low-income and minority communities, which means that they have limited access to resources, mentors, and education, which leads them to feel unprepared or unfit to join the workforce. The second career-related issue was that they are frequently labeled by our society. So as we know, we often call these individuals criminals, and this affects our perceptions, which reduces their chances of getting a job. And in addition, it affects their own self-perception, which leads them to commit future crimes in order to live up to these expectations or misconceptions. And third, they have lower career maturity than other adolescents their age. This is in part due to the fact that there are not a lot of career preparation programs in detention facilities or in probation programs, and this leads them to lack the preparation, the skills, and the experience to get a job in the future. Next slide, please.
Okay, so the first activity that we identify would be helpful to our population is a peak experience exercise. So this was developed by Abraham Maslow, and it's basically about teenagers relating their peak experiences to skills that they can use for future careers. So first of all, before you begin this activity, it will be best if you create a quiet and calm environment, which you can do so by using mindfulness. So for example, you can ask the kids to take a deep breath and really focus on the moment. And then after that, you will first ask them to define one experience from each aspect of their lives, something school, relationships, extracurricular activities, anything like that that gave them joy, a thrill, something that they were at their best. And then after that, they will describe the experience. Then they have to think about the feelings that the experience created from them. Did you get joy, pride, confidence, excitement, etc., etc.? And then vividly recall the situation. Who were you with? Where were you? What could you see, hear, and sense? Then after that, you will ask them, what actions did you take to create the outcome? How much did you study? How long did you practice? Things like that. And then we have, what skills do you have that enable you to take those actions? So we have honesty, patience, collaboration, anything that they could relate to an actual career. And then 6 is, how could you apply these skills again? So this would help them to critically think how they can apply the skills that they used during that peak experience to relate to an actual career or a job. And then lastly is look for patterns. For example, what kind of things helped you define who you are and your capabilities. Okay, and you can go to the next slide, please.
So the second activity we identified was career development project. This was actually adapted from a senior project that a lot of high school students do in order to graduate. This would consist of having the juvenile delinquents choose a career of their interest and then research the job opportunities, the requirements, and other things of that sort. And then they would have to create a poster of their findings and present it in front of their peers. By doing this, we believe that it would be very beneficial for juvenile delinquents in order to help them recognize the potential opportunities that there are in jobs or careers in their city or in their state. It could also help them to figure out the requirements and preparations that they will need in order to be successful in this career. And by hearing and seeing their peers' presentations, that they can also learn about new careers and jobs that they might have not considered. And lastly, it would help them develop vocational skills such as research, writing, public speaking, and time management. Next slide, please.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So for the third activity, we have value clarification. And what this activity does is that it allows students to identify what is important to them in their lives, and the values that are discovered through this activity are then applied to a work setting, so it can enrich their career planning and other job search activities. This activity can be really effective for helping the individuals make choices that lead to a more adaptive living. It can also help mediating the process for behavior at an individual and societal level. And it also makes it easier to help them choose who and what they want to be in their lives. And finally, it does help counselors or whoever is guiding them through this process of their career to create like a client-directed goal so they can go through all of the stages. And this is the activity that we're gonna go ahead and present for you guys. So first of all, we have the materials that are needed. For this activity, the only things that will be needed is a purple, pink, yellow, and green pieces of paper cut into 2x3 slips and a fly surface and utensils. Usually, this activity would take around 60 to 90 minutes to be conducted, but because of time constraints right now, we're gonna make it a little bit shorter so we can demonstrate it for you guys. So the way that it will work is that, first of all, whoever is conducting the activity will give a brief explanation of what values are and why values are important in the process of getting to know what career you want to take. And after that, we would go ahead and give the materials. Every student or every individual will receive 4 pieces of paper per color. So it would be for purple, for blue, for pink, for yellow, and for green. Right now, Mariana and Jose already marked theirs, so I'm gonna go ahead and explain what each of the colors mean. So for the purple prompt, each individual will have to write down 4 physical objects, products, or items that they feel that they need in their daily life in order to function. For the blue prompt, everyone would write 4 geographical locations that are special or important to them. For the pink prompt, everyone will write down 4 people who have made them who they are today. It could be either positive or negative, or it could be a mix of both. For the yellow prompt, every individual will write down 4 personal or professional goals that they have for themselves. This could be either short-term or long-term. And finally, for the green prompt, everyone would write down 4 significant memories that they always want to remember. So for each of the prompts, the activity would probably give them around 5 minutes, maybe 10 for the green prompt, just because the memories can take a little bit more of time. But like I said, right now, Mariana and Jose did this previously. So we're gonna go ahead and do the second part. So in this part, we go ahead for the reflection. In total, we will have 20 papers, and we would ask the students to take just a couple of minutes to reflect on what they wrote down, because in the end, what they wrote down represents who they are, the locations that are important to them, the people who are important to them, the objects. So we just want them to take a couple of minutes to take everything in. And then after that comes card elimination. So of all of the 20, they're going to select only the 5 ones that are the most important to them. This can take about 10 to 15 minutes. It can be shorter or longer depending on how easy it is for the individuals to select their top 5. And after that comes sharing. So after everyone has selected their top 5, we would ask the participants to turn around to the person next to them and to kind of have a conversation about the slips that they chose and why they chose them. So right now I'm going to ask Mariana and Jose to share with us what slips they chose and why they chose them.
All right, so I had the pink prompt, which is someone special to me, and I chose my mom because she's always there for me in the good and bad times, and she's also a really great role model. She's a good mom, a good worker, a good sister, and a good wife. So I would aspire to be like her in the future. And then I had the blue prompt, which is a special location to me, and I chose Austin, Texas, because that's where most of my family is, and every time I go there, I make very special memories with them, and I have a very fun time.
Okay, and I chose the green prompt, which is choosing a memory. And the memory I choose to always keep is hugging my grandpa, because sadly he passed away last year due to COVID. So really just thinking about him, the good memories that I had with him, and really feeling his touch is one of the best memories that I have with him. And then for the yellow prompt, I chose to maintain my physical health, which is a goal that I plan to have throughout my life. And the reason for that is because I remember last year I went for a doctor appointment, and I ended up coming up with a high blood pressure, which really hit me that I really need to start taking care of myself, which is why I started exercising more and all that kind of good stuff. And it really eventually, it became a lifestyle for me, which is why it is my goal.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing that with us. After the sharing part, the activity would go on for the value identification. In this part, the students can select different options. So for the top 5, they're going to write down or identify one value per card. So some of the examples that were given in the article were, for example, support, pain, life-giving, burden, love, freedom, darkness, and compulsion. And each person needs to write down their value that they have chosen in the back of their slip. And finally, we have the value naming. So in this part, the participants are now gonna share with us the values that they have chosen for each of their memories. Usually in the activity, it would be 5, but right now, just because of time constraints, we're gonna do 2. Mariana and Jose, I don't know if you guys wanna share with us what were the values that you chose?
Yeah, of course. So for my mom, I chose love because, as I said, she's always there for me and she loves me unconditionally. And for Austin, Texas, I chose support because all my family is there and they always support me. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be who I am right now.
Okay, and for my values, for the first one, for hugging my grandpa, I chose love because he also showed me unconditional love no matter what I did. And I really appreciate him for that. And then for my other goal, for my other prompt, the value that I chose is life-giving because maintaining my physical health is, I believe, will help me live longer.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So this would be all of the steps for the activity. We did found that there was an additional step in case this activity is done in a setting where behavioral adjustment is wanted, for example, in the case of a counseling session. So if the final step to this activity would be to kind of like reflect back on those values to help the students or the individuals exercise more informed and motivated decision making. And this is a very easy follow-up. It's only 2 prompts. and it would ask the individuals to identify if the 5 values that they have chosen are healthy or unhealthy. And they would select one, and after that, we would ask them to know if they want to either increase or decrease the presence of this value in their life, to write 2 concrete ways that they can do it. For example, Mariana, she wrote support, right? That's something that she probably wants to maintain. So maybe 2 concrete actions that she could do is like maintain communication with her family, or maybe implement a way to see them more, stuff like that. So in the case that they had an unhealthy one, this is where we can start making a plan to change their behaviors. How can they decrease that negative aspect of their values or of their actions? And this would be pretty much the activity. And after this, we wanted to have a little bit of a discussion of our impressions of the activity and why we think this is something that can really impact our our population. I think for me, something that really impacted me of this activity and why I think it's very crucial for this population is that idea that you can allow them to have either positive or negative values. I think that's something very important, because as I was writing it down, I realized that maybe for a population, it would be hard to have 4 positive memories, right? Because we talked about how they come from low income families where maybe there's violence or there's drugs involved, and they probably have had a lot of harsh experiences that other teenagers don't have. So I think for us, or for me, I think one of the main things of this activity is kind of allowing them to accept all the experiences that they have and all of the different role models, either negative or positive. And I also think that the last step is very important, because it kind of really allows for that behavioral change, and kind of like that reflection of, okay, this is a value that you have in your life, and that's okay. Do you want to keep it, or do you want to decrease it? And if they do want to decrease it, we can actually start kind of like helping them going through that step. And overall, I think this is a very good activity for a population, because as we mentioned, as Mariana mentioned, with the needs of the population, they usually don't have a lot of role models, they don't have a lot of information. So some of these teenagers are starting from blank. They don't know who they are, they don't know what they want, they don't know who they look up to. So I think that starting from just knowing what's important to them, it's a really big step to knowing, okay, if my family is important for me, if making money is important for me, and if technology is important for me, I can take these 3 values, and maybe I want to get a certificate as computer software, or like fixing computers or doing something like that. Like, I think this is a very good start for them, to kind of like open the doors for that career exploration. And Mariana, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that this is a great activity to kind of develop career maturity that we mentioned earlier that this population lacks. And it's very fun and easy. So for adolescents, it's going to be a great way, because especially at that age, you don't really think about how your values or your experiences affect who you become or your goals. So this is a great way to kind of begin preparing this population to, as you said, find something that they want to do in the future other than engaging in criminal activity. So instead of committing crimes in their neighborhood, they can look for a program that they really like, either in a technical school or in a university or whatever it may be.
Okay, and I would also like to add that in my experience working with juvenile delinquents, I can really see this activity working for them, because in my experience, teenagers tend to be really impulsive, so they don't really think about the consequences of their actions. And what's really important about this activity is it takes them kind of like a step back, and it helps them reflect on their experiences in life, which could really help them develop not only as a person, but it will help them with their careers as well.
Perfect. Thank you guys. So we're gonna move forward.
All right, so now we're gonna discuss some of the useful resources we found for counselors who work with this population. So the first one is a research article, which is the vocational interventions with offenders. We think that this would be a very useful resource for counselors working with juvenile delinquents because it provides an overview of the limitations of current career interventions that are used with offenders. So it gives them a better idea of why some of these don't really work and are very ineffective with this population. And it also provides an integrative approach of the risk, needs, and responsibility model and the social cognitive career theory model. So these will kind of allow them to see, to like predict the chances of someone reoffending and how they can prevent that, and also see how people become interested in different fields and careers. So it would kind of be combining these two aspects to provide better career counseling for the population.
Perfect, thank you. Our next resource is Workforce GPS website. This is basically funded by the US Department of Labor, and it has access to webinars, training resources, warfare development practices, and other relevant evidence-based research that would help develop innovative approaches to improve the job perspective for clients. And also something else that I thought was really, really helpful is that it has a resource section, and they have over 257 resources for justice-involved individuals. So I think this is very, very useful because all of the resources are related to this specific target population, and all of them are also related to job searching and job opportunities. So for example, for counselors to have this resource, they can go and kind of like look for the opportunities for this specific population and offer this to the individuals in a way that is maybe more digested for them to read, or like they can even go over it with them. So we thought this was a really, really good resource.
Another resource that we found was Reaching and Serving Teen Victims, a practical handbook. So basically this handbook mentions that there's a high rate of teen victims that do not report the crime done to them, which in turn leads to delinquency, teen pregnancy, and substance abuse. The correlation is often overlooked by professionals and the public. And the handbook also provides a guide on how to work with teen victims. The guide really goes more in depth on how teens differ from adults, from a biological perspective, a cognitive perspective, and a behavioral perspective. Also, it really gives you a lot of practices, guides to really help the teenager, how to help them find opportunities, how to get outreach, and all that stuff. And now you can go to the next slide.
All right, so the first resource for the population that we identified is the Texas Career Check website. This was created by the Texas Workforce Commission, and we believe that it would be really useful for juveniles delinquent and to build their career maturity and preparation, because it provides them a list of careers, jobs, as well as the salaries and the job prospects in their area. It also provides a list of colleges and universities in the state of Texas, and even has a tool that would allow them to input to schools that they are really interested in and compare the cost, the demographics, the graduation rates, and other statistics.
Another of the resources that we found for the population is ONET's interest profile, which is fully in Spanish. So basically this tool has 60 simple questions that create an interest profile for the user. The interest profile that they will receive provides them with a percentage on each of whole and 6 personality types, and then it recommends potential careers that they might want to explore. Like I said, this assessment is 100% in Spanish, which is very important for our population because, just as we mentioned at the beginning, in Texas, 50% of the juveniles are Hispanic. And if we consider the fact that they also come from low income families, maybe a lot of them, the main language at home is Spanish. So, in the case that they don't feel comfortable completing a long assessment in English, we wanted to have this additional resource for them, just like to make it a little bit easier for them to kind of like understand their values, their personality types, and what are the careers that they would like to pursue.
So lastly, another resource that we found for our population is the Job Search Help for Ex-Offenders. So this was developed by the U.S. Department of Labor, and it basically gives job opportunities, career development, local resources, and educational content for ex-offenders. And the reason why we did it for ex-offenders is because a lot of these juvenile delinquents are most likely to commit crimes again after they leave jail. So most of them will carry on a record to their adult life, which is really important for them to educate themselves about companies that hire ex-offenders, opportunities that they can take advantage of. One thing that is really important about this website is that it helps teens connect with local resources. So for example, teenagers here in El Paso could use this website to connect with organizations locally that are looking out to help that population. Can you go to the next slide, please? So some of the insight, advice, and warnings that we have is, it is found that individual counseling, behavioral programs, and interpersonal skills are effective in reducing recidivism. So basically, recidivism is the act of committing crimes. And these strategies are the most useful for counselors to use if they want to help their client reduce criminal activity. And then also, one thing that counselors should take a note of is that juveniles at our stage in which they are experiencing mental and physical growth. During that time, their hormones are really going in overdrive, so it really influences their behavior and their emotions. It really escalates the level of the emotion and their thinking. Not only that, but it is also important to take note that a lot of juvenile delinquents have been exposed to violence in childhood, which is probably the main reason why they are acting in criminal behaviors. So it is important to be mindful of that when talking to this population, that they have been through a lot and that you should never look down upon them. In addition, this is a great time to help them explore with different careers and reflect their values. Again, their knowledge on the world is very limited. So right now it is a really important time to help them explore different careers or activities that they might enjoy, so that they can use for their careers. And then in addition to that, we did an interview with Mayela R., the director and therapist at Peak Behavioral Health. And an advice she gave to us is that adolescents have their own language and that we must be open to learn it. What she meant by this is that these teenagers grew in a completely different environment from us. And so the way they communicate, the way they speak, the way they talk, how they talk, and all that, it really differs from what we are used to. So you really need to be open-minded about the way they communicate and really be open to work around it so you guys can develop a better rapport. Not only that, but it is really important to note that juvenile delinquents have a negative view toward authority figures. So it's really important that, especially you, when you try to help them, not to really be put in a power position. you really need to create a warm and welcoming environment so you can really establish a rapport and so you can guys have a better relationship. And can you go to the next slide, please?
Perfect. Well, that will be all for our presentation. This is our references. I just want to say that as a team, we all really enjoy learning about this population in particular. Jose already had a lot of experience because he does work with this population on a daily basis. So he was a great resource. And I think I learned a lot about this population. And I think now we all feel a little bit more prepared to kind of like whenever we actually encounter them in our practice, to at least have that knowledge of like their background and some of the insights of some of the things that we need to consider when we work with adolescents, especially with juveniles. And I think that will be all for our team. Thank you very much for listening to us. And I think that's all, guys. Thank you very much.